You're not slow, you're not incapable, you're not bad at learning, you're addicted to distraction, trained to forget, and conditioned to stay average. That's the truth. Nobody had the guts to tell you. Right now, your brain is being hijacked every single day. Short videos, notifications, junk information, endless scrolling. You're feeding your mind like it's a trash can, then wondering why nothing sticks. You sit down to learn something important, and within minutes, your focus collapses. Not because you lack intelligence, because your brain has been rewired for cheap dopamine, not deep mastery. And that should scare you. Because in a world where attention is power, the person who can focus, learn fast, and remember everything becomes dangerous, respected, unstoppable, while everyone else stays replaceable. So, here's the shift. You're not here to learn better. You're here to become the kind of person whose brain adapts faster than reality itself. And once that switch flips, you don't just gain knowledge, you gain control. It starts with understanding something most people will never realize. Your brain doesn't care about information. It cares about survival. If something doesn't feel important, emotional, or urgent, your brain deletes it instantly. That's why you forget books. That's why you forget conversations. That's why you forget the very things you swore you'd remember, because your brain is asking one brutal question every second. Does this matter for survival? And if the answer is no, it's gone. So the game isn't memorization. The game is importance. The moment something feels critical, your brain locks in. Think about the last time someone disrespected you. You didn't forget that. You remember the tone, the words, the exact feeling in your chest. Why? Because your brain tagged it as a threat. Now, imagine if you could make learning feel like that. Not painful, but urgent. Not boring, but necessary. That's where speed comes from. That's where memory becomes permanent. And that's where most people fail. It's because they treat learning like a hobby. You're about to start treating it like war. There's a man sitting in a quiet room staring at a book. Same words, same pages, same time spent, but two completely different outcomes. One reads for 2 hours and remembers nothing. The other reads for 20 minutes and walks away transformed. The difference isn't time, it's state. The first man is passive, relaxed, comfortable. The second is alert, focused, slightly uncomfortable. That edge, that tension, that intensity. That's where your brain wakes up. Comfort is the enemy of memory. Let that sink in. Every time you try to relax and learn, you're training your brain to ignore what you're feeding it, because relaxation signals safety, and safety tells your brain, this doesn't matter. So it deletes it. High performers do the opposite. They create controlled pressure. They sit upright, they engage physically, they ask questions, they challenge what they hear, they turn learning into a confrontation, and suddenly, retention explodes. Now, let's go deeper. Your brain runs on dopamine, not the cheap kind you get from scrolling, but the earned kind, the kind tied to progress. Here's the trap you're stuck in. You consume too much and produce nothing. That kills memory. Because your brain stores what you use, not what you watch. You can listen to 10 hours of content and remember almost nothing, but spend 10 minutes explaining something out loud and it becomes yours permanently, because now your brain says, this is useful. So, here's your first weapon. Every time you learn something, you speak it out loud, like you're teaching someone. Not quietly, not in your head, with force, with clarity, because the moment you explain it, your brain organizes it, structures it, owns it. That's how you compress hours of learning into minutes. And now, you're starting to see the pattern. Speed isn't about moving faster. It's about removing what slows you down. Distraction, passivity, comfort. Now let's talk about the real enemy. Procrastination isn't laziness. It's fear. Not fear of failure, fear of pressure, because learning something deeply requires you to focus, and focus removes your escape routes. No scrolling, No distractions, no comfort, just you and your limitations. Most people run from that. You're going to walk straight into it because that's where transformation lives. There's a technique elite performers use, whether they realize it or not. They shrink time. Instead of saying, "I'll study for 2 hours," they say, "For the next 25 minutes, nothing exists except this." That intensity changes everything. Because your brain can handle pressure in short bursts, it just can't handle vague, endless effort. So now your sessions become sharper, more aggressive, more focused, and suddenly learning feels different, faster, cleaner, stronger. But here's where it gets dangerous, in a good way. Once you start learning faster, you start seeing what others don't. Patterns, weaknesses, opportunities. And that's when communication changes, because knowledge without expression is useless. You can be the smartest person in the room and still get ignored. Why? Because you don't sound powerful. That ends now. Your voice is not just sound. It's status, it's dominance, it's authority. When you speak, people instantly decide, should I respect this person or ignore them? And that decision happens in seconds, not based on what you say, but how you say it. Most people speak like they're asking for permission. Soft tone, rushed words, uncertain delivery. That signals weakness, even if your ideas are strong. So, here's your second weapon. Slow down. Not slightly, noticeably. When you speak slower, you force people to listen. You create tension, control, presence. Now, combine that with pauses. Silence becomes your ally. Because silence makes people lean in. It signals confidence, control. And when you finally speak again, your words hit harder. But there's something deeper. Your body is speaking before your mouth ever opens. Your posture, your eye contact, your stillness. If your body looks uncertain, your words don't matter. So you train your body like a weapon. Shoulders back, chin level, movements controlled, no fidgeting, no nervous energy. Because stillness is dominance. Animals understand this. Humans forgot it. Now, let's connect everything. Learning fast gives you knowledge. Memory gives you power. Communication gives you influence. Combine all three, and you become someone people can't ignore. But it comes at a cost. You lose your old identity, the distracted version of you, the comfortable version, the version that starts things and never finishes. That version has to die, because the person you're becoming operates differently. They don't wait for motivation. They create structure. They don't chase dopamine. They control it. They don't avoid pressure. They use it. And here's where most people break. Consistency. Anyone can feel motivated for a day. Few can execute for months. So you simplify the system. You don't rely on feelings. You rely on rules. Every day, same time. No negotiation, no debate. You show up or you stay average. That's the deal. Now imagine this version of you 6 months from now. Focused, sharp, confident, speaking with authority, learning faster than your environment can keep up with. That's not motivation, that's identity, and identity is permanent. But we're just getting started, because the next level is where things shift from improvement to domination, where fear disappears, where pressure becomes fuel, where your mind stops working against you and starts working like a weapon. And once you step into that, there's no going back, because now we strip away the last illusion you're still holding on to. You think you need more time. You don't. You need more intensity. Time is the excuse average people hide behind, so they don't have to confront how weak their focus really is. Because if I locked you in a room right now, removed every distraction, and told you your future depended on learning one skill in the next hour, you'd do it. No hesitation, no procrastination, no, I'm not in the mood. You'd lock in, which means the problem isn't time. It's that your environment is too comfortable, and your standards are too low. So we raise both. Right now, your brain adapts to whatever you repeatedly tolerate. If you tolerate distraction, you become distracted. If you tolerate inconsistency, you become unreliable. If you tolerate mediocrity, you become invisible. So the question isn't, how do I learn faster? The question is, what have I been allowing that's keeping me slow? And the answer is everywhere. Your phone within reach, noise in the background, multitasking like it's a skill, when it's actually self-sabotage. You don't need better techniques yet. You need a cleaner battlefield, because focus is not created, it's revealed when distractions are removed. So here's what happens next. You create a learning environment that feels different the moment you enter it. Not casual, not relaxed, but intentional. When you sit down, your body knows. This is where work happens. No phone, no tabs, no switching. One target, one mission. That alone will put you ahead of 90% of people. But we're not stopping at 90%. We're going to build something most people never experience. Cognitive aggression. That's the state where your brain stops wandering and starts hunting. You're not passively reading anymore. You're attacking information, questioning it, breaking it, rebuilding it. Because passive learning is slow learning. Aggressive learning is permanent. You read a sentence and immediately ask, what does this actually mean? How would I use this? Where have I seen this before? Those questions force your brain to connect, and connection is memory. The more connections you build, the harder it becomes to forget. That's how experts think, not by memorizing more, but by linking everything. Now we go deeper into something that will change the way you experience fear, because whether you admit it or not, fear is still controlling parts of your life. Fear of looking stupid, fear of getting it wrong, fear of speaking up and being judged. And that fear is slowing your growth. Silently. Every time you hesitate, you reinforce it. Every time you stay quiet, you strengthen it. So we break it. Not by avoiding it, by training against it. There's a simple rule high performers live by. If it scares you slightly, you move toward it immediately, not later, not when you feel ready. Now, because hesitation feeds fear. Action starves it. So you start small. You speak up once more than usual. You ask the question others are afraid to ask. You explain something, even if it's not perfect, and something shifts. You realize the fear wasn't real. It was imagined, and your brain updates. It starts to trust you. This is how confidence is built, not by thinking, by doing. Repeatedly. Under pressure. Now let's bring pressure into your training, because without pressure, there is no growth. You're going to simulate stakes, artificial at first, but powerful. Set a timer. Give yourself a challenge. Learn this, understand this, be able to explain this within 20 minutes. That constraint forces focus, forces urgency, forces clarity. And when the timer ends, you perform. Out loud. No notes, no safety net. That moment, that exposure, that slight discomfort, that's where your brain upgrades. Because now it knows. This matters. And what matters gets remembered. Now we step into something most people completely ignore. Energy, not motivation. Energy. Your brain cannot perform at a high level if your body is weak, tired, or overloaded. You can't outlearn poor energy. You can't outfocus exhaustion. So discipline becomes physical. You move your body daily. You control what you consume. You protect your sleep like it's your weapon. Because it is. Deep sleep is where memory locks in, where your brain organizes everything you learned. Skip that, and you sabotage yourself. Simple. Now imagine this loop. You learn with intensity. You speak what you learn. You sleep deeply. You repeat. That cycle turns average minds into elite ones. But then there's another layer, a dangerous one. Social dominance. Because once you start improving, people notice. Some respect it. Others resist it. They'll joke. They'll question. They'll try to pull you back into comfort. Not because they hate you, because your growth exposes their stagnation, and most people would rather pull you down than rise up, so you hold your ground, quietly, confidently. You don't argue, you don't explain, you continue. Because real dominance doesn't need approval. It shows through results, through presence, through the way you carry yourself. Now, let's sharpen your communication even further. Because this is where power becomes visible. You don't just speak slower now. You speak with intention. Every sentence has a purpose. No rambling, no filler, no like, no hesitation. You think, then you speak. And when you do, your words land clean, direct, precise. That's authority. Now, layer in eye contact. Not aggressive, not forced, but steady, unshaken. Because people trust what doesn't move. And when your eyes stay locked, your posture stays grounded, and your voice stays controlled. You don't need to convince anyone. They feel it. That's presence. And presence is rare, which makes it powerful. Now, we bring everything together again, but at a higher level. You're not just learning faster anymore. You're becoming sharper in every interaction, more aware, more controlled, more dangerous, in the best way. Because now your mind doesn't drift. It directs. Your emotions don't control you. You control them. When pressure rises, you don't panic. You stabilize. When others hesitate, you act. And that gap, that difference, that's where opportunity lives. But there's still one weakness left, one that destroys more potential than anything else. Inconsistency, under boredom. Because at some point, this will feel repetitive. The excitement fades, the novelty disappears, and that's where most people fall off. Not because it's hard, because it's no longer exciting. So you reframe boredom. Boredom is not a signal to stop. It's a test, a filter. It separates people who rely on feelings from those who rely on standards. And standards don't change based on mood. So even when it feels dull, you execute. Even when it feels slow, you continue. Because that's where real identity is built. Not in hype, in repetition. Now picture this clearly. While others are chasing motivation, you're building discipline. While others are distracted, you're compounding focus. While others start and stop, you continue. And over time, the gap becomes impossible to ignore. This is how people become elite, without anyone noticing the process. Silent work, visible results. And we're about to take this even further. Because the next level isn't just about control, it's about precision. Where you don't just work hard, you work exactly right. Where your brain doesn't just remember, it predicts. Where your communication doesn't just influence, it commands. And once you step into that level, you stop competing with people because you're operating on a completely different system.